Hello, all you unsung athletes. Welcome to the Unsung Athlete Podcast, where we give a voice to you, the unsung athlete, training every day, grinding without excuse, reward or not. I'm your host, Shannon Rose. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to the Unsung Athlete Podcast, where we give a voice to you, the unsung athlete. I'm your host, Shannon Rose, and I'm here with my newfound friend, Marla Martin. Marla has spent her career advocating and healing children, building up their minds and improving their emotional well-being. Marla is a wife and a mother to two incredible kiddos, one of whom my daughter is her very best friend. Every time I get the chance to catch up with her, I learn something new that opens my heart and my eyes to life's many perspectives. And no matter what, you always stand in truth and integrity, which I couldn't respect more. You are such an inspiration, and I'm so excited to have you on the show today to hear more about your story.
Thank you so much. I'm honored and excited to be here.
Yay! So let's get started. So,
Okay.
first off, tell me, what excites your heart these days?
There's the simple, and then there's, the big picture things that excite me. Simple things excite me today, like a clean kitchen or a cleared off dresser space. I think the busyness of life makes those little things exciting, right? When things seem to fit, to find a little bit of order. And I think in general, like you nailed it when you're describing me, busy household and when my kids are learning and growing and happy and healthy, I feel most at peace. So,
Hey. So I've known you, I say newfound friend because we found each other through our kids and their really special relationship. They're
yes.
so incredible and sweet. I love them so much. They are both athletes in and of
Mhm.
themselves. But I know you've been an athlete for a long time, and we'll get more to your earlier story in a
Mhm.
little bit. Today, in this moment, do you consider yourself an athlete and why?
That is a really good question. And as I was preparing for our conversation, I thought about that. And I don't know that I had thought about it prior to right now, right? Like I think if you look at my lifespan, of course I would describe myself as an athlete. I was a college athlete. I work in sports psych right now. I am deeply entrenched in the world of an athlete, but me myself, I think it's had to go through so many redefinitions over the years. And so right now, I do identify as an athlete, and I'm still searching for what that looks like today in this
Mm.
particular season that I'm in. Um,
Yeah, talk about redefining what that means for you in each and every moment. I know I went back to the gym after being out sick for a couple weeks. I went back to the gym even this week, and we were doing some simple conditioning, and I thought I was dying. Like, is this my first day? Have I not been working out,
I
for
know.
years and years and years, but it is an ebb and flow and redefinition and a delicate balance of
Hmm.
rest and recovery and compassion for self. So I feel you.
Yeah. Yep.
In that, and you had briefly talked about that you've been an athlete for a long time, but we
Hmm.
all started somewhere, back when we didn't even know what we were capable of. So tell
Yeah.
me your origin story, and when did you first feel that athletic energy in your life? When did you
Hmm.
first see yourself as an athlete?
That takes me back to, I think it was like fifth grade or sixth grade. Before that time, I was really involved in dance. So I did ballet multiple times a week. That was my thing. And I did like it. But as I was getting older, I was a little jealous of the kids that got to be outside, right? I was always inside for ballet and I wanted to be outside. And I started to notice that at recess, I was just cooking all the kids. I could catch anybody, right? Nobody
Mhm.
could catch me in tag. I was just really fast. I had a teacher who ran track himself through his years, and he's like, she should run track. And he said that to me and my mom one day. And I remember immediately feeling like, yep, I should, right? Like it just felt like he gave me a hat
Clicked.
to put on and it fit. So I would say, sixth grade was when I really started seeing that in myself.
Wow. And you're in child psychology, and I think that, one of the common stories and things that we forget is that as children or young adults, we learn through play, right? So
Yep.
you're talking about the fact that the first time you felt like an athlete was when you were playing tag.
Oh yeah.
That's incredible.
Tag and tetherball, you could not stop me. I was unstoppable. I'm going to be honest. I don't mean to be prideful, but it's
You
an
can be
objective
prideful.
truth.
That was just amazing.
It was. It's true.
I know you're like me. We're both tall women. Were you pretty tall in fifth grade then?
I was taller than most kids, especially it really jumped in middle school. I was taller
Okay.
than almost all the boys for sure. I was taller than most of my friends. I grew up in a mostly white area, so I was like
Mhm.
definitely the tall, sporty, black kid. So, which
Yeah.
wasn't a negative identity or anything like that, but that was definitely like how I was perceived.
Right.
So, yeah,
So I would love to know more, though, about your athletic journeys. You first started in about fifth grade, you're feeling, oh, like I could do this and compete in this and do something regularly, improve your craft a little bit. You're starting to figure out what that is. But tell me more about your athletic journey from that point on, or you can skip ahead to some of the more juicy stuff because I know
the
you
highlights.
had a college career that was incredible. So I want to hear all about it.
Yeah, it's funny. As I get older, I look back on it, I think a little bit more gently than it felt at the time. So as a middle schooler, I did track during the summers. I think now we would call it like travel teams, track. And I was on a team and we'd go compete in neighboring states or just cities kind of around my area. And to me, it was just really fun, and I liked the workouts. I worked hard enough and
Mhm.
made a ton of friends. And so toward the end of middle school was when I was like, okay, I think I'm pretty good compared to my peers. So I was like, I should keep doing this. And I competed where I grew up. Ninth grade was in junior high. Ninth grade
Okay.
wasn't considered high school. Um, but the track team for the middle school just wasn't as fun for me. And
Oh,
so they let me do ninth grade in the high school since it's technically high school. So I was able to run track for the high school as a junior high student, which I thought was really fun. And I thought I was, all that or whatever. But as high school progressed, I think I had a little bit more confidence, a little bit, not a lot of confidence that I maybe could continue to compete after high school. And at the time, track gave me friends. It was where I made so many good memories. It was something I was successful at, and it also gave me options.
yeah.
I knew that if I got a scholarship to college, I would have a lot more options. And so that's where I chose to place my energy and was able to compete in college after that. And I did 4 years of track in college. I had a wonderful career, met the friends of my life. The people I'm still super close to are from those college track years. So, yeah, so I was a 400 hurdler and a heptathlete in college at New Mexico State University. And I loved it. I loved every minute of it. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you, okay, there's a few things I want you to unpack, but the
Okay.
first thing, please explain to my audience what a heptathlete is because I had to ask.
Good question. Yes, I forget that it's not an everyday word. So a heptathlete, it's similar. What's more so known as the decathlon, which the men do, which is 10 events. The heptathlon is what the women athletes do, and it's the 100 hurdles, high jump, long jump, shot put, javelin. We do a 200 and an 800. And you do that
Wow.
over the course of 2 days, and then you get a point value for your result. So, however far you throw, or high you jump, or fast you run, there's a point value attached to each number. And then you add all your points together, and high points win. So, for me,
Wow.
it was nice because I wasn't the fastest and I wasn't the strongest, but I kind of was able to do a lot. So it let me be kind of a jack of all trades as an athlete. And yeah, I loved it. It always gave me something to work on, and it was really fun.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and I suppose you're looking at cumulative points instead of did you win the 100? Awesome. Oh my gosh. Well, I was a thrower, so I can kind of understand what that part was like, but I
I
definitely
love it.
did not run. I ran to keep in shape. I ran to perform and to be better in my other crafts, but I mean, nobody ever called me quick or fast. So
But strong.
so strong. That is
Yeah,
something that I do have. Yes.
I
And
love that.
I mean, that's the cool thing about being in a sport or being an athlete is you do not have to be all of it.
Nope.
You know, and there's so many sports and so many opportunities to exercise the strengths that you do have.
Hmm.
So also mentioned that middle school was really like that sports level was boring for you. So explain that to me because I get that, right? It's probably redundant, it's lower level competition,
Hmm.
but I would love to hear from you why that just didn't satisfy your athletic itch.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I'm competitive, but I'm not an aggressive athlete, right? I played basketball for one season and immediately realized that I'm not tough enough for that. And
Elbows,
yep,
setting
I have
picks, none.
mad respects for those ball sport people because they're intense. But um, so my track at my middle school was like a dirt track. It wasn't even for sure 400 meters long. The
Oh,
practices were, I'm like, after running summer track, I would go to track in the middle school and I'm like, this is not track. Right? People just kind
yeah.
of running around and no one knew. So I just kind of felt like I just was dusting everybody. And so
Yep.
if I run for the high school, I can at least be, challenged and get proper workouts and things like that. And I wanted to progress because during the summers you compete and you could qualify for junior nationals. And so it's called the Junior Olympics. And so I didn't want to kind of not excel over my school year because then I would be starting from square one in the summer. So I was like, well, if I run for the high school, by the time I get to next summer, I'll still be in good shape. I'll still, I'll have good skills. So that was kind of my motivation for that, just to compete with people who are a tiny bit more serious about it than just kind of like trying it out, which I love, right? Like there's a time and a place for like the casual, fun sports, but in middle
Great.
school, I really wanted to get better and improve and see what I could do.
Yeah.
So my middle school just didn't give me that opportunity. So
Well, I think that's interesting because one of my other questions was going to be, did you always have that drive? So I mean, you think about it, in middle school, you were already planning and
yeah.
thinking, how can I improve? How can I get better for the summer with it, which is what I really love, right?
Hmm.
So, and then in high school, you're thinking, okay, how do I do better so that I can go to college and have more options? Not everybody is thinking about how they're going to
No.
leverage that or plan how to get better. So, my question was, have you always been like that? And it sounds like you kind of have.
Yeah. It's just part of my personality. I mean, I was the kid who I would have my mom save the inserts in the magazines where you would fill in your little name and address. They give those
Yep.
cards to like mail in, and I would have her give me those and I would fill them out and file them. So I was like an OG nerd, like making paperwork for myself as a child. I was a planner and I had what helped me, and this is like we kind of talked about our girls and their friendship. But I had a friend who was kind of equally as driven, equally aversive to girl drama, right? We both were not interested in that. And she was an athlete, I was an athlete. I thought it was normal at the time, but we would meet at the gym at like 10 a.m. in seventh, eighth, and ninth grade. And we would run 2 miles on the little indoor track together just to stay in shape. That's what we did.
Right. Because you weren't interested in the morning drama or routines of the rest.
Not at all.
Your way to avoid it. Not just avoid it, but find a way to make it absolutely productive.
Absolutely. And so, hey, my friend that did that with went on to win a gold medal in the Winter Olympics as a
What?
bobsled driver. Yeah, she's amazing. And so I think it worked out well for us.
Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
incredible. And isn't that cool? I mean, you think just running a couple miles in the morning. I mean, you guys probably weren't going all out,
Mm-mm.
gassing out in the morning. You're just jogging your 2 miles before school, but you do that every day for 3 years. Something's bound to improve.
Yep. Yep.
Dang. Ooh, I like that.
Hey, get moving, get up, get moving. It's the way to go. I just remember getting to school and she and I had kind of already connected for the morning. And so we just went into school and it just helped us avoid a lot of drama. And she and I are still friends today, all these years later, which is great. Yeah,
And it could lead to a gold medal. So,
it could.
so Fast forward, here we are today. You're leading and driving a busy life, an important household. I know you guys are now getting ready to uproot and move to go help your mom. I mean, there's so much going on, but how do you keep yourself going? How do you keep your energy up, and how do you keep progressing in whatever you are doing or your goals in your life right now, or even how do you keep going as an athlete, as a mom,
Yeah.
knowing, like we talk about on this podcast, that there isn't a major award waiting for you every day, or you're not showing up
Yeah.
for your kids every day to get a gold medal at the end of the year. How do you keep yourself going?
It's a good question. I think part of it is that personality bent of mine. I kind of just naturally think about kind of a natural problem solver, or at least look for solutions. And so in this stage where I work, I have like a private practice that I do. I have two kids that have their own stuff, marriage and family and all that other stuff. And I think there's days where the sun comes up and I'm like, oh boy, can I
Of
just lay
course.
here?
Yes, of course. And sometimes laying there is the best choice, and that's
It
okay.
is. And I think that's honestly where I found the most health, is figuring out how to grant myself that self compassion the days where I do need to say, I'm sorry, I cannot. Well, actually, what I've been working on is leaving out the I'm sorry. I'm not available for that, right? And being able to know my limits, and kind of non judgmentally approach my life. So, knowing what I can do, what I can't do, having a better idea of I deserve to be able to stop and rest, right? And so some nights dinner is sandwiches and super simple. And other nights I really want to make an elaborate meal because I want to. And so I try to find those times where I can do things out of a little bit more of a want to. But for sure, I think that former athlete part of me is just, I'm okay with a grind mode. Like I can get into a serious grind mode and it's like you get up, you do the first, you do the second. When stuff gets hard, make a checklist and
Yep.
just work the list.
Right.
And as I get older, just learning how to do that, but then also putting on that checklist, stop, move, use your sauna. I have a room in our house that nobody's interested in being in here, but I use that space for myself. Spaces where I can recharge, I think is honestly, that's the bigger challenge than getting all the things done.
Right.
Because I can accomplish and I can produce, but the stopping and recharging is where the work is for me now.
Isn't that crazy? In the last podcast I did with my two yoga friends, that is all they talk about, is that's what they do. That's the
Yeah.
part of the athlete they serve, is the regenerative, restorative part, which, I mean,
Mm.
as an athlete and as somebody who is just naturally approaches life with that athlete mentality and spirit, like you say, truly we can grind. Give us a goal and a vision. It's like, let's go. And sometimes to our peril.
Correct.
We're tired. We're willing to get sick over it.
Hmm.
Injury, we know injury is part of it. We know we're going
Hmm.
to be sore. But again, that old saying, do it sick, do it tired, even when you don't want to. And you're constantly
Hmm.
showing up to the cause, which is what gets incredible results, like you said. However, that pace isn't sustainable.
Correct.
Constant.
Exactly.
And that's the challenge. I agree with you.
Exactly.
That's hard to stop.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. 100% harder.
So the question maybe is not how do you keep yourself going, but how do you stop?
Exactly. Yeah. The going is not something that I really even have to hold in front of myself. I think I like to know what my goals are. I don't mind stepping back and reevaluating, but factoring in, am I going to put gas in my own tank so I can do these things? That's where I have to put the emphasis these days.
Yeah, I recently was looking at gym memberships in this family are really important.
Yep.
So I've got my
Yep.
MMA gym that we go to, and I also have my functional strength training. And I was thinking, should I reduce it to one? And I'm like, no, I can't, because they
Good for
both
you.
serve purposes. One
Yep.
builds my body and it allows me to keep moving
Hmm.
phenomenally and performing in my world, and the other one keeps me sane.
Exactly. And they're both as important as electricity and heat
Oh
and
my gosh. Yes.
internet. And, like those are line items that are important.
Yes. Oh my gosh, snaps to that. So we know what keeps you going. We know how hard it is for you to stop, but you're working on it. And isn't
Yep,
that what it's all about? But
I think so.
we all know that there's been times where we've been knocked down or had to start over, or we've wanted to prove to the world that can't isn't in our vocabulary. We all have a comeback story. What would your comeback story be where you were knocked down and had to come back?
Well, I have a few, but I think my most famous one is the week where I found a very large tumor on my rib cage, and my house burned down in
Marla.
this in the same week. Like literally in the same week. I remember standing with the firemen looking at my burned out house. Think TV show burned out house. We're standing there and my phone rings and I pick it up and he kind of looks at me funny, lady, your house just burned down. The call can wait. But I looked at him and I said, I don't know if I have cancer. This is my doctor. I have to answer. And he was like,
Gosh,
what?
Marla. Oh my
Um,
gosh.
so that was, yeah, that was in 2019. It was a remarkable time. We, thank goodness, we're all safe. And my reflective statement about that time in my life was, we, the only things we lost in the fire had to go. We were
Oh,
able to save everything meaningful from the fire, and that included some really important relationships that didn't survive what we call didn't survive the fire, and obviously material things. We kept our wedding pictures, and but we lost literally every item of clothing we had. We lost all of our furniture. We lost everything. Everything. We went into an apartment and lived in an apartment for a year. And while that was happening, I was recovering from major reconstructive cancer surgery where they had to go in. They removed four of my ribs from the front all the way around to my back. So I've got over 20-inch spans of rib on my right side. Um, and nowadays, they put you in the hospital. Even if they do serious things, you're in there for a couple days and then you're home.
right.
Yeah, I was in the hospital for 10 days and I remember walking. They get you up to walk and I've never been in that kind of pain. Never, even close. And I've had other surgeries, been an athlete, like, but nothing could have prepared me for that. And I was on the transplant unit at U of M. Like that's the floor I was on and I was like, my gosh, like this was really serious. So that put me in a position where after the fire, we were moving into Homewood Suites in Edina because that's where we had to find somewhere to live.
I know
And
exactly where that is.
yep, so my friend said go to a Homewood Suites. They have a family hour every evening where they give you snacks and wine or whatever. And so then you can at least have that for the kids every night and they serve breakfast. I remember moving our stuff into the hotel and that's when I did get the call about my tumor and it was what I was waiting on. The tumor was either going to be like get your affairs in order, you're done, or this is just a really big problem. So I was hoping for the like, I'm going to live option, which I got. And they called and they said it's not this certain type of cancer that we were suspicious of it being. It's actually this really really rare type of tumor. And it's like on the one in a million kind of level. It's very rare. Lucky me. And I told the nurse, I just sat down on the floor in the hotel and I said you don't know what you're I said, I'm so thankful. I said, my house just burned down and I'm literally moving into a hotel right now. And she's like, what?
I mean,
It was
this
it was
is just,
crazy.
you can't make this up, Marla.
Oh no, no, no. So that would be my comeback. I did the surgery. We moved home to the apartment because we had to rebuild the house. And we chose an apartment because I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna be out for the count. So let's pick a small enough place where we can kind of all see each other. Not a lot to clean, not a lot to snow to shovel and things like that. So we lived in an apartment for that year, and during that time, we found out who our friends really were and what family really means,
Oh,
and definitely had some people that are in our lives in a much different way now. And have a different relationship with myself. And it was really a proving time for me.
Wow. So this
So,
happened. I'm
yeah,
thinking about this. This happened. Then COVID happened.
correct. And
Marla.
I was in graduate school at the time. So I was writing a dissertation when all of this was happening, and I remember trying to wean myself off of pain medication so I could write because I had deadlines. And I thought, if I don't meet these deadlines, I'm in school for an entire year extra. I don't want to do that. So again, grind mode. I'd go downstairs in the apartment building. It's one of those brand new fancy apartments
Oh yeah,
where,
where they've got the little meeting rooms and little call
yeah,
room.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. So, and one of the reasons we chose it, right? So it's like, okay, I can go study. So I would
Wow.
go down there and I'd say, okay, I think I can make it an hour, and I would write. And then I'd go up, I'd go sleep for a few hours, and COVID hit, and we just did school in that little apartment, and we just had that little time, and it was like a little capsule for us because it was so strange. It was such a strange time where COVID is terrible, but to be honest, like, we had already gone through it, so we were like, this may as well happen.
Well, it's just
So
extended now.
we're just going to
Marla,
extend it. I had already been home, and so by the time lockdown happened, we were already really
ready
band
for it.
together.
This is one of the things I absolutely love about this show is I learn things about people I know that
Yeah.
I would have never guessed that that happened to
Yeah.
you. And that was right before our girls really became close.
Yes, because it was COVID that caused us to switch campuses for their school. It was a really life-changing time for all of us. After my surgery, I couldn't sleep on my right side for, I think it was 18 months probably before I could even roll over in bed because
My God.
they cut me from skin to lung. They took all of it out. And so I'm replaced right in there as mesh and bar and all kinds of stuff. But
So like
um
muscle and everything.
they pulled back the muscle, and then I'll spare you the details of how he described it, but yeah, they pulled back skin, fat, muscle, and then cut everything out. And so they rebuilt all of it. He said there's no guide for how to do this kind of a reconstruction. He's just kind of figured it out. It's like, okay,
Thank you.
thank you. I'm glad you're really smart. But then you go back to, how do you define yourself as an athlete? I remember thinking, I want to walk my kids to the bus stop, which was going downstairs in an elevator, walking down the hall, and then coming back upstairs. That was my goal. It took a few weeks for me to even be able to walk outside, to take them to the bus and go back up, and I remember it being just
Hard.
excruciating. Gosh, I mean, harder than any 800 I'd ever run. But then you think about how all those things prepare you. I know I can do hard things physically. I know I can do hard things mentally. And just finding that, I did have to tap into that athlete mindset of mine of, I can do this, just keep
One
going
foot, one foot.
physically. Yep. Yeah. And I think it was part of what allowed me to get through that. Just
Right.
a host of things, but mindset wise, that was a big part of it.
Wow. I'm kind of in a little bit in shock from
Sorry,
this whole
it's
story.
hard.
It's
People
okay.
ask stuff like that, and it's hard because you can't casually say, that's not something you just
It's not
slide
something
in
that
at, like,
comes up as we're
no.
dropping kids off and talking about Christmas and New Year, right? But thank you. Thank you for saying that because that story is so powerful to me. It's so powerful for more than just overcoming cancer. Your story is so powerful because, my goodness, you know, God, source, universe narrowed everything down and said, here's the small thing that I just want you
Yeah.
to focus on for the
Hmm.
next 2 years. This is
Hmm.
it. For you, I don't, there were no other options. You had to
Yep.
focus on your body and your health and doing these simple but extremely hard things. I mean, it just, when you were telling me about walking your kids to the bus stop, it just gave me goosebumps because for most of us, that's a hassle. And that's something
Oh
I take
yeah.
for granted. I'm like, oh, I do not want to walk them out to the bus stop. And you're talking about that's all I want to do.
Yeah. And at the time before that, I'd had a couple knee surgeries and other things like that, but I had never been debilitated where I cannot sit up. Thankfully now I'm able to do just about everything that I want, which is a miracle. But yeah, it was really a humbling time. And then just to have, I had plenty of time to think. You know what I mean? Like I had plenty of time to think and just to see that what that proved in myself, what that revealed about some of my relationships. Um, it's completely informative to who I am now. Like
Wow.
we aren't the same household, at all
Wow.
because of that time. Yeah, it's crazy.
That is crazy. Well, I'm glad I know you now.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm on the other side of it. I'm glad to know you as well.
Well, it sounds like then the prognosis is good for now and moving
Yes.
forward.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yay.
I should buy a lottery ticket is what the doctor said. Um, the type of tumor it's called a desmoid tumor, is technically benign. He's like, it's cancer, but not cancer. But I'm fine. I can lift weights. I can run-ish now. I feel like I have a brick in my body, but I can do so many things. I go on hiking trips with my teammates from college. I'm able to. So when you talk about what's your comeback story, it really does go back to who do you allow into your life. I had
Yes.
a former teammate that we reconnected shortly after my surgery, and she could tell I was still really trying to come back. And she invited me on one of her hiking trips. She's the coolest person ever, but she's like, "You need to come with me." And she told me, she said, "I could tell you had lost your mojo and I could tell you needed it back." And she loves me and she invited me and she pushes me. She's like, "You can do this hike." I don't know if I can, but I did and I have. So we're three hiking
Wow.
trips in, and finally after this third one I'm like, I'm an athlete again. I can hike 10 miles through Mount Rainier. I can do these things again. But I didn't get there on my own, for sure, for sure, for sure. There's my kids, my husband, my family, my friends have all been amazing.
I love that. I've had some different guests who have burnt out in their sport or in their training or in their career. And by doing, something that is the same level of difficulty or ignites you in the same way, but different,
Hmm.
there is something to that just reignites that, like you said, your
Yep.
mojo, your athleticism,
Hmm.
who you are. And when you are a deep-seated athlete, that is who you are. That is, I
Hmm.
don't know about you, but a huge part of my identity all the time is tied to whether I make it to the gym 5 days a week or not.
Yeah. Yeah. It's imperative to me being at the core of who I am.
Yeah.
It's really, and nowadays it's like it's easy to let go of. It's easy to get caught up in the hustle and bustle of grocery store and drop offs and pickups and things like that. But it's a non-negotiable if I'm going to be fully me.
Yeah, no excuses, especially
Yeah.
for you. My
Yep.
God, I gotta shake that off now. Wow,
Sorry
my
to
mind's
drop that bomb on
blown.
you.
I'm completely inspired. You tend to be a source of your own inspiration and power. You truly are intrinsically motivated to go get,
Hmm.
to make things happen. But as we all know, there's always someone in our lives. And I know you mentioned your one friend who helped you get your mojo back. I think that's an
Hmm.
incredible example. But is there someone maybe earlier in your life that helped you and inspire you to become an athlete? You
Hmm.
had, in passing, I think, early mentioned someone in fifth grade, but if there's anyone
Yeah.
in your life who just inspired you to become an athlete, who are they?
Yeah, I think that goes back to those early coaches. My high school coach and assistant coach for sure were that. They helped me go from a girl who could run fast and ran on the track team to you can run in college, you can push yourself, you can do this. They were supportive. So yeah, Coach Raj and Janine, they helped me become an athlete. I would not have gone to do Division 1 sports without them, and I would never have been brave enough to try hurdles. And there's things that I wouldn't have been brave enough to try without them. And that's really where that started, was
Yeah.
from them supporting that in me. So yeah, they get the credit for the athlete part for sure.
You
Yeah,
just
and I have told them. as much.
I think that's what's cool is there are these other people in our lives who can see us and see things, but we don't necessarily see that next step or that ability. And then they plant that seed and they help you water it, and then you become it. And all
Mhm.
of a sudden you look around and you're like, they were right. I
Yeah,
could do
exactly.
it.
Exactly. Yeah, and it is one of the biggest blessings in life, I think, is to have people in your life that will give you enough thought to speak those kinds of things into your life. My friend who invited me on her hiking trips, her life is busy. She's got 3 busy kids, she has a busy career, she didn't have time to be thinking about me and my mojo, but she did, and that's huge. Yeah,
Well,
that's huge.
I think that's something too. When we ourselves have capacity, maybe our lives are, we ebb and flow. Sometimes we're in a real
Mhm.
lucrative, cushy time in our lives. And maybe that's the inspire moment there is if you are in that type where you have a little extra, more time,
Mm,
you're peaceful, healed place. Maybe look around. There might
yeah,
be
it's
somebody
huge.
who's a little lower on that
Yeah,
scale that could use a little bit of that. I love that.
yeah, that's awesome.
So, when people think of Marla, what do you want them to think, say, and feel? What do you want your legacy story to be?
For the majority of my life, I've always felt it important that my friends, my family, like the people in my life find me to be genuine and loyal. Those are really important traits to me. To be who you say you're going to be, where you say you're going to be it, and how, like be true to your word. Um, and I hope my legacy is that I wasn't judgmental to others, that I loved well, and that I did what I said I was going to do. I think that's underappreciated sometimes, or underestimated the power of that. I'd say, I want my family and my kids and my friends to feel well loved and thought of by me as loyal and genuine and faithful.
Well, I mean, even in my introduction, like integrity is something I've always gotten from you. And you are truthful but tactful. You're open,
I
genuine.
try.
You just have this exactly what you described, you exude. And I always, always, always feel that when I'm around you. And more importantly, I see it in your daughter and in that next
Yeah,
generation.
thank you.
Yes, well, I mean, I've seen her just be an incredible friend of integrity who keeps a core sense of self, a
Yeah.
true north attitude, and genuinely and courageously able to stick up for herself and others. So your legacy does live on, and it's not all
That's
up to you.
that's good to hear. I did forget one thing, and that is laughter and sense of humor. I love laughing. I love it's talking about my daughter even. She has the ability to laugh at herself, which is kind of rare for, not all teenagers can do that, which is understandable, but she can laugh at herself. And
Oh,
I'd like to say that I can too, but it's the sense of humor to me is that'll get you through a lot if you can
yeah,
just
our
get you through
girls
a
are
lot.
just little weirdos, which
I
I
love it.
absolutely adore to my core.
My Emmy, I was dropping her off at school yesterday, and we were running late because of traffic. And so she was waiting at the school door, and she tripped. And I rolled the window down. I was like, "Honey, are you all right?" She's like, "Did you see that?" And I was like, "Yes." And she just threw her head back, laughing out loud at herself. That's the stuff. That's the stuff that keeps you upright when life gets
She's not hanging her
dodgy.
head. She's not ashamed. She's not looking around
Exactly.
embarrassed. She's owning it.
Exactly.
Okay, so as we close out, I've got one more question for you. Just whatever is top of mind, top of your heart. In a world where there is so much going on, it's moving so fast, it's intimidating, some of it's negative and dark. But there is also this incredible light and beauty in our world. So the question is, what is one thing you would say to inspire the world to be better, a better place for your kids?
What I would say is to remember that even with all of the darkness and the yuck and the division, that loving your neighbor is still worth doing. And even if your neighbor didn't vote like you or doesn't shop like you or doesn't, right? Like typically, in most cases, you can still love that neighbor well. And I think that that's what I want for my kids. I want them to have diversity in their friendships and relationships, and that hopefully, even if some of the particulars are disagreed upon, the core of all people are valuable, all people deserve to have, as long as those core things are shared, I want their, I think the hope and inspiration can come from, I may not be able to do anything about the big dark stuff, but I can, in my reach with what my arms can kind of touch, I can put love out there.
Yeah.
I think it kind of makes it a little bit more, feels more doable than trying to sometimes think about how to make global change.
I love that. I normally don't chime in after that answer, but that reminds me so much of my grandma Ruth. She never had a bunch in her life. She never had a lot of money, always lived in a tiny house in a tiny village. We always called her the tiny grandma who lived in a tiny house, who lived in a tiny village.
It's
But
cute.
she was exactly that. What she had, she always just gave freely of and
Yeah.
provided space for love. Even in the depression, she had a really tiny bakery with her and her husband, my grandpa, and they would always leave two seats open in their little lunch cafeteria for free
Hmm.
lunches during that
Wow.
time where they would always just, they themselves were suffering, but it was a
Yeah.
time where people could still come and be fed one day. That is
Yeah.
exactly what her motto was. She never had anything extra, but she could always love and
Yep.
help. Yeah,
Yep.
always.
Yep. I love it.
Well, Marla, this was an inspirational journey. I am so happy that you came on the show and were willing to open up about all of this. Thank you for being here and showing us all the true heart of an unsung athlete.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us on the Unsung Athlete podcast, where we give a voice to you, the unsung athlete. I'm your host, Shannon Rose. Keep grinding without excuse.